and welcome to yet another episode of Funny Talk with Mongelli and Max. I'm Tom Mongelli, and this is my lovely co-host, Doug Max. Say hi, Doug.
Lovely co-host. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Tell us about our guest today, Doug.
I can't tell you anything about him. I can tell you he's an actor and comedian, world famous Brad Zimmerman. Brad, hello.
Hello, and let's get accurate right from the get-go. When you just said world famous,
Yeah, go on.
let me put it to you this way, Doug. My fan base is Boca Raton and my building. So, do you know what I'm saying?
Known all over floor number 5 as
Right.
the guy with the sense of humor.
Yes, I am. Yes, that's exactly right. It's a pleasure to be here, Doug. Pleasure
So
to be
far.
here, Tom.
That's good. And you can lower your screen a little bit. I think you're getting cut off on the top, or go back. But anyway, as longtime listeners of our show know, we are connoisseurs of comedy, Tom and I. And we vet very closely every guest that we have on so that you're assured an entertaining time. But for this show, I was chatting on somebody's Facebook page, and this guy, Brad, writes something that was very funny, and I wrote back, and he wrote back something funny, and I laughed, and I never laugh. I thought, this guy must have something. We've got it. So I wrote to him and said, would you like to be on our show? So this is really all I know. But I've subsequently found out that not only is he an actor and comedian, but you opened for a pretty funny guy.
Yes.
A few, and a funny gal.
Yes, I had the distinct honor of opening for two comedians in the top 10, maybe, who have ever lived. Certainly George Carlin is, and I would put Joan Rivers in there. Great honor to have worked with both of them. I'd still be working with George. George passed at 71. Age 71. In fact, they're doing a documentary on his life. I will not be in it because my fan base is Boca Raton in my building. So I don't want to, that's the last time I'm going to say that. And by the way.
So they'll have a showing of the movie. It's another 17 tickets they'll sell.
Say that again?
They'll have a showing on the 5th floor. They'll sell another 17 tickets.
Can I ask you a question, Doug?
Only one.
Are you always this humorous?
No, he's being especially funny today.
He's setting me up, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
And because he said he doesn't laugh, and I'm thinking, here's a guy who loves comedy, but he doesn't laugh.
Oh yeah. Well,
because all the comedians I love are dead, except for you and Tom.
Is that true? Are all the comedians you love the old Catskill comics?
Honestly, well, I don't know that I'd call them that, but like I grew up and I love Burns and Allen.
Right.
Tom and I have been talking about May and Nichols. Nobody knows May and Nichols. You might not even know May and.
Of course I do. I mean, first of all, their writing was exquisite.
It was they had some talent.
Yes, but everything starts, Doug and Tom. I'll include you, Tom, only because that's the way it is.
Yeah, he's the co-host.
It starts and ends with the writing, and that's just the way it is. In anything, in any medium, it starts, in my opinion, it starts and ends with the writing.
And put your fucking apostrophes in the right place, people.
Wow. That's beautiful, man. Do that again. Try it a little more seductive. Turn your head a little bit to the left.
I actually, I don't want to be more seductive because it would conflict with my sex toy company. I've been manufacturing sex toys with a punctuation mark theme. But we've been getting complaints about the question marks. Yeah, God, cross yourself, Tom. That's gonna the people on audio don't see you crossing. You got to say something when you do that, Tom. What do you say?
The guy upstairs sees me.
By the way, have we hit the 55-minute mark yet? I'm just curious.
So I invite Brad on the show based on his 3 words that I thought were funny.
Right.
I go, oh, great. And then like 5 minutes ago, he goes, so we're going to talk for like 2 or 3 minutes, right? Then I got to go. I'm like, no, we got an hour show. He's like, well, I can't be funny for an hour, but I can be poignant for 55 minutes. So I think we're up to the poignant moment. So
Before we-
Tom, get your violin.
Before we start with the poignant comments, I just want to bring up our sponsor, which we should really do. Our sponsor for the show is Jack Hoffman of J. Irwin Productions. If you want a comedy show for a fundraiser, a private party, a showcase for a restaurant, Jack Hoffman is the guy to call. He knows all the comics. He puts together great shows, and he's wonderful to work with. So you can contact Jack at jirwinproductions.com. Right, Doug?
Jack is a great guy. I know Jack. He is a terrific guy. Jack goes everywhere. You see him at book signings and this and that. He knows everybody.
He really does.
He knows his wife. It's unbelievable. So what do you want to know, Doug? Talk to me.
First of all, first I want to know about my lovely co-host, because Tom, you're not up at your normal, 8.3 level of energy. You're down like at 7.2, if you don't mind my saying so.
I had a hard day at work. I rushed to get home in time. I barely made it. I'm in the process of moving. My mind is elsewhere. I have to apologize.
You think you got problems. You think you got problems.
What's it like, Tom, working in a produce section? What is that like?
No.
And do you when people ask you what was it like being with Carlin, do particular stories pop out of your mind that you would like to share with us?
Well, first of all, since you said the F word, the first time I ever opened for George was outside of Chicago at the Paramount Theater. And the first time you opened
and lower your screen so we don't just see your nose. Sorry. I want you to look good. I want you to.
Am I okay from here?
Now you're good. You're good from there.
Okay. Yes. So guys, the first time you open for a star is the most important, because if you do well, you keep going. And that's what happened with pretty much everybody I opened with in terms of people, well-known people. So here's what happened. George said to me, I can only watch 10 minutes. I have to go over notes. He was working on what turned out to be his final HBO special. Okay? So I start my set. I'm doing 30 minutes. You always do 30 minutes. And here's the bottom line. He never left. He watched my whole act. And then he came up to me backstage, because there's a break in between. And he said, am I allowed to curse?
Yeah.
He said, fucking great. And I got to tell you, I hugged him, and I swear to God, I said, I got to go call my mother. And I went upstairs. It was, you guys, think about that. Yeah. Like one of the top 10 comics, 5 comics has ever lived, says fucking great. It's unbelievable. What a moment.
I had a very similar experience early on in comedy. Tom and I went to comedy class together. And he was in one of my shows, and I said something in one of my early acts, and Tom laughed. And I called up my mother and I said, Mom, my friend Tom laughed at a joke of mine. And then I started crying.
Doug, that is, you think I'm kidding, but that's right up there with that Carlin compliment. I'm serious. That's right there, man. That is brilliant. That is, I feel like you've sort of topped me. I don't know where to go with this. Doug, look at me. Look at me, Doug. That is so pathetic. That is so pathetic. Who'd you take comedy class with?
Sociopath.
What was his last name?
Watson. Sociopath.
Okay.
Sociopath.
Guys, I want to tell you something. I waited tables in New York for about 29 years, literally. Okay, because I started as an actor, but I never really pursued it. And the only what happened was, like 1996, a waitress where I was working had taken a class in stand-up comedy and suggested that I do the same because I'm funny, whatever. So I took the class for no other reason than to take it. All I can tell you is that's the reason I'm here talking to you guys, because I took a class. And I kept taking classes for like 6 years before I started,
Wow,
I did a
really?
bringer show.
Wow.
And they taped it and I started sending it out. My first paying job was an Orthodox Hungarian Jewish bungalow community in the Catskills. Okay. That was my first gig.
Wow.
Did you get borscht?
Tom, do you want to do this with you and me?
He always does, but it's because he's getting even because of all the times I've like commented on the guests as being so much better than Tom. It begins to affect them.
So, do you guys do comedy or do you just talk about it?
Well, we attempt to. It's a matter of opinion.
Hey, I do comedy. What the audience does is entirely up to them. But
Very good, Doug.
I'm doing the day I got my divorce papers in the mail, and I knew I could do. There was one thing. My ex did not like my having fun, but I think what bothered her more than was my existing. Anyway, when I was free, I booked myself in the new talent night. I went up on stage 2 weeks later with 40 or 50 things written on a piece of paper. I think I got through 3 of them. 2 years later, I still only got through 3 of them, but yeah, that was where Tom and I are going on like 9 years together.
Yeah, it's 9 years now.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell by this anyway.
Yeah.
You're not married though, are you?
Not to each other.
That's
No,
right. Well, you said you've been together. I thought maybe okay. Because
No.
Doug, you do look divorced. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the glow, right? It's
Yes.
It's, I've got the blue skies above me.
Doug, where are you now? Where do you live?
I'm in New Jersey.
Where?
Summit.
I grew up in Burton County, New Jersey.
Okay. Fancy schmancy.
Tom, where do you live?
I was born in Hoboken, but I grew up in Wayne.
My father's whole family grew up in Hoboken. His father owned Washington Furniture Company on Washington and Second. If he hadn't sold it for $200,000 and held out, I'd be a millionaire. And when you asked me to do a podcast, I would go like this. Yeah. Let me get right on it.
No, Hoboken.
We didn't get to talking money. I'm glad. It would
Right.
have been a tough negotiation. But I make a wonderful brisket. I'll let you know that. And I know you come to New Jersey on occasion. So
I was there today.
yeah.
Yes.
Sorry to hear that.
No, don't do that because you know what? New Jersey is awesome. I mean,
love it.
it gets a bad rap, but I can't tell you. People go, "Oh, I'm from New Jersey. I'm sorry." I'm not sorry. What a great state. You know, it has the turnpike. Big deal. Every state has nonsense going on. I mean, my God.
Listen,
it has beautiful
the truth,
country.
the ugly truth of New Jersey is the turnpike isn't the problem. It's the parkway. It's the people that decided, let's take the most densely populated state and the most belligerent, obnoxious people and see how they do at 70 to 80 miles an hour on a 6 to 7 lane highway. And there are many parts of the parkway that go 6 lanes with all the entrance ramps and 3 lanes of merging. It's a miracle our state doesn't have the population of Rhode Island just because of the parkway.
When you were just doing your spiel, I was thinking of another place that I would never live. Parts of Long Island. Forget about it. You have no idea.
I've got a parking lot. I've got a driveway. I can park there. I don't need to go to Long Island.
Anyway.
You're telling me my son once visited a friend of his out on Montauk. And I had to go and pick him up. And it was something like, it should be a 2.5 hour straight drive, but it was like 5.5 hours getting there and 7.5 hours back. Cause it was of course the end of the summer or something like that. Just horrible.
Now, Brad, I just wanted to ask you, before you were talking about working with Carlin, another guest that we had recently also used to open for Carlin. Did you ever work with Dennis Blair?
I haven't worked with Dennis, but I know him very well. And Dennis is the real opener. He opened for Carlin for like 18, 19, 20, whatever it was. He's the man.
And and then Carlin's like, something? Dennis, nothing personal, but there's somebody else in my life.
Actually, what happened was Dennis was living in Vegas, so he had a couple of openers. He'd have me. He was very generous. He didn't want to just give Dennis all the work once Dennis decided to sort of back off a little bit. And
Right.
so I'd work in specific areas, and then Dennis would work in certain areas, and a couple of other people. It was the same thing with Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers, I opened for Joan, and then she took a break where she was just going with musical acts, and then she came back to me, and she was one piece of work, guys. She
Yeah.
was a piece of work.
I bet.
Was she as outrageous in real life off stage as she was on?
First of all, she was incredibly bright, a
Yeah.
big reader, went to the theater every night, every single night that there was theater, because she had and loved working. I mean, loved.
You could
I
tell
was
she
with
was
there once.
engaged.
She showed her agent her appointment book, and it was empty. And she said, "Look at this. Look at this." And I mean, I'm being sincere. The agent said, "Oh, we got some things. Get it. I need to work." I mean, this woman was a workaholic,
Uh-huh.
but brilliant. And she had some writers that were top of the line, so she could go punch. And that's the old, those are the classic comics. I'm not like that at all. I work very, very slow. And I mean, literally very deliberately. That's why I'm an actor who does comedy as opposed to a comedian.
He thinks he's slow, Tom.
No, I'm not. This is not my persona. I'll show you my persona. Are you ready for my persona?
Go ahead.
All right. Can you give me don't interrupt me, Doug, because you've got that habit going on. Okay. So my doctor tells me my cholesterol is much too high. That's because I eat glazed donuts for breakfast. I eat a pint of ice cream at least 4 nights a week. If I didn't exercise as much as I do, I'd be huge. And I exercise not so much because I love to exercise. I exercise because I don't want to look the way I feel. So my doctor says to me, you don't have to give up the ice cream. Eat it every once in a while. I don't want to eat it every once in a while. It doesn't appeal to me every once in a while. It appeals to me all the time. If I want something every once in a while, I'll eat fruit. I can eat fruit once a month. I have no problem holding out. I have never had a craving for an apple. So, that kind of deliberate, angsty, coming from the emotionally driven kind of, I'm not from here.
Yeah. You put out these videos, these short videos. I was watching them. I forgot what you called them, but they're hysterical. What's the name of them?
A bit of Brad?
What is it?
A bit of Brad?
Yes, that's it. Very funny.
I tried doing that during the COVID to see if anything would happen. I think I got 35 followers. Yeah.
Really?
I have enough followers on Twitter to carry my casket. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just unbelievable. Anyway, Doug, anything else before we go?
I wanted to ask you, I asked Dennis this too, how it felt to be with someone acknowledged as one of the world's top comedians, performers. Dennis said some guy gave him a shirt that was printed up that said "the other guy."
Doug, you have to understand something. I was 42 years old when I started comedy. The really great comedians today, most of them, 90 some odd, high 90%, I used to go to the comic strip because I had a friend who was a bartender. So I saw Adam Sandler and Chris Rock do comedy in their teens. They didn't need classes. They knew they were going to be comics.
Right.
So they grew up. A friend of mine, Tom Cotter, who finished second on America's Got Talent, Carlin was his idol. Andy Pitts, another good friend of mine, great comic. Carlin was his idol. So none of these guys, all I remember is the guys on Ed Sullivan. Myron Cohen, Jackie Leonard, George Carlin, Alan King. These were, but I didn't feel like I felt honored but it wasn't like, it was for Dennis Blair and some of these other people who knew they wanted to be a comic right from the get-go. And the other thing is, and this is modesty, I know loads of comics who would have been great opening for Carlin. I had a great tape that was sent to his agent. Bingo. Same with Joan Rivers and Brad Garrett. Brad Garrett was great to open for. Great impressionist. Great.
I saw him in AC.
That's the first place I opened from, was the Tropicana. It was amazing. I did another great set, went down to Smith and Walensky and had a steak. What a moment.
So Brad, you're doing something which is incredibly brave, a one-man show.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
I wrote a play in 2005, and it chronicles a long journey of a guy who waits tables, the Jewish mother, all that. And in 2013, I sold the touring rights to the play called My Son the Waiter, A Jewish Tragedy. And just to give you an idea of what it's like to have a Jewish mother, there's the most famous joke ever written about a Jewish mother is the Jewish mother, a Jewish son becomes president of the United States. He calls his Jewish mother, he says, "Mom, guess what? I won. The inauguration is in 3 weeks. You'll be there front row." She says, "Nah, I'm tired. I can't. I watch it on television." "Mom, I'm the first Jewish president." She said, so she goes to the inauguration. He's being sworn in. So the mother's sitting in the front row. She turns to the guy next to her. She says, "See that guy being sworn in? His brother's a doctor." That's the best. That's the best. And in fact, the mask for the COVID, my mother was kind of conflicted. She was glad it kept me safe, sad she got to see what I would have looked like had I gone to medical school. You know what I'm saying? So, and then, you get this. This is typical mother. "May I say something?" "What?" "I don't pry. I know not to pry. I'm just curious. That's all. How much longer, Brad, do you think that you're going to give the acting?" "Mom, when I've given it my best shot, I'll get out." "I understand that." "I do. But have you given any thought to what you might do if, let's say, you can't make it as an actor? I'm going to make it. If that's what you want, I hope you do." Nothing and on and on and on. Unbelievable. But I love my mother. I love her, but she's been an endless source of material. I told her that. She says, "What are you going to do when I'm gone?" I said, "I'm going to sell your house." Oh, Doug laughed for the first time. Let me write that down. Wait a minute.
So
Doug laughs.
Brad, I took care of my dad for the last 4 years of his life. He passed away last August.
How old was he?
I got a lot of material out of him too.
How old was he?
97.
He did well.
Yeah. But it just got to be so annoying at the end. I stopped with okay, this pill for this and this and the. It's like, whatever was handy, because it was such a chore in the morning. He would complain. He'd complain about the lawn, and how it looks, because I'm taking care of him. I couldn't mow the lawn. I got him a riding mower, a self-propelled mower.
Very good. Very good. Tom, are you married?
No, I'm happy.
That's very good. Good timing.
Never married.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What about you, Brad?
I am a late bloomer in everything. So let's just say I'm blissfully single, in the sense that, I live in a rent-stabilized apartment for 40 years.
Nice.
My mother would love to see me get a one-bedroom apartment someday. She's been saying it for years. What do I need a one-bedroom apartment? So I can go into another room if I want to be alone? I mean, it's mind-boggling. But she's a very special woman, and she's not well. She hasn't made it to. I wanted her till 95, and she's not well. So
I'm sorry to hear it.
life.
I'm sorry to hear it.
Thank you.
And I
Thank
know
you.
it can be a struggle. And Tom went through that too. Believe it or not, Tom took care of his father too.
Good boy, Tom.
Thank you. My mom died early, 63. Left my father with multiple sclerosis. And
In the will?
yes, it was the oddest thing. No, he had MS and it got worse toward the end. And I ended up moving down with him and quitting my job and relocating.
Where was he living?
In Tom's River.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In a place called Holiday City.
Ah,
I don't know what holiday they're celebrating though.
it's on my bucket list, by the way. I don't know if you know that.
Is that right?
No.
I wonder if this generation would take care of, I remember my son saying to me something like he was depressed because he had an image of taking care of me when I'm old. And I said, honey, don't worry about it. And I told him, I said, honestly, I tell all my friends who have that privilege to be able to take care of their parents, in the later years of their life, to figure out some way to get out of it. Just anything, I got to go to a movie. Sorry.
Well, we could get into this whole poignant thing about what you're talking about, Doug, because
We've got, you're like short on the poignancy, if you don't mind my saying so.
all right, well, let me just say this. What you guys are talking about, there's certain kinds of illnesses that are easier to deal with than others.
True.
We all know that the big one that is if it ever happened to me, the last thing that I would want is a burden on my family. I'd want to, go to some state where they could say goodbye to me and, that was it. And, but, my mother has the C, cancer, and it spread it. And, she's got a great attitude. She's, when I started to cry, when I first saw her, I was down in Florida. She lives in Boca, surprise. So she said, oh, let me kiss your hand. And of course I started, but she said, don't cry. I've lived a wonderful life. She has lived a wonderful life. That's a pretty good attitude, guys.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, the reality is she's my biggest fan. She calls me during the show. I mean, I'm on stage. She'll call. Brad, are they laughing? Did you do? Let me ask you.
Now they are, Ma. It's the first laugh I got.
But and I have to tell you guys, during the COVID, since I'm only making unemployment because I started so late, so I don't audition, whatever, and I don't do clubs. I'm writing the sequel, and I just did the sequel for My Mother and 8 Other Women in my mother's place on Tuesday, and it's called My Rise to the Middle, and it's going really well, and I'm hoping to option that. If that happens to me, anything after that would be icing on the cake. So
you need a really old, cranky guy to play an old waiter. I used to be a waiter too. So,
how long did you wait tables for, Doug?
2.5, 3 years.
Yeah, that's hard, man. I did 29. That's nothing compared to what you do.
I know.
And Tom, what do you do for a living?
Right. I used to be a teacher, a high school teacher. Right now I'm managing a self-storage facility.
I had a feeling when I looked at you. I said, here's a guy who could manage a self-storage facility. And in fact, you probably specialize in the first floor.
Yes, I do.
There you go.
But that's
And
another
Doug,
thing.
what do you do for a living?
Right now, I do this. This is my living. I have had a checkered past. I was a corporate trainer teaching business writing and presentation skills for many years. I've also been a home improvement contractor. I've been a teacher. I've taught every age kid from like 3 up to, Marines. And of late, I'm doing this. This is my life with Tom and other people who are unimportant in my life, except for my lovely girlfriend.
May I ask you guys, since it's turned into me being the interviewer, Doug, let's start with you. Who are the comedians today, since we're talking about the old generation versus the new generation, who are the new generation of comedians who do it for you?
Andy Kaufman, I think, has always been, and he's not. I guess he's not this generation.
Tom, I did say
but-
I did say the new generation.
So,
Tom, did
so
you hear me say
honestly,
that?
then honestly, my honest answer is going to be, the comedians who are the fools of our society, the Jon Stewart, Colbert, Samantha Bee, Trevor Noah, the people that speak truth to power and can get away with it through satire.
Well, keep something in mind. Stewart was started as a comedian. Stephen Colbert was in improv, and Samantha Bee, I don't know, I'm not sure what her situation. And Trevor Noah is a comedian also. Hold it.
Ma.
No, that wasn't my mother. Tom, what about you?
Well, I have to say my comedy mentor was I like a lot. Uncle Floyd. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
He kind of gave me my start in comedy, and I really enjoyed Gilbert Gottfried, who I opened for, and a lot of the comics that I like are come and gone.
Hey,
You know, when Gilbert Gottfried is on his game, he's one of the 5 funniest people in the world.
Uh-huh.
When he's on his game, he's unbelievable.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
I got to open for him too, and I will be honest, I only knew him from the roasts, and I just thought he was really abrasive and mean. And
Wait, he was mean to the audience or mean to you?
No. To whoever he was roasting or whatever, he was cutting, but his act was incredible. I was absolutely shocked, and I loved it.
And he's very different off stage.
Oh, absolutely. By the way, if you want us to me, because I do know a lot of the comics. If you go to the Comedy Cellar, that's the place where you see the comics that are not famous, but they're very well known in the comedy world. Dan Natterman, Greg Rogel, Tom Cotter, all those guys, and Dov Davidoff is fabulous. Do you know Dov Davidoff?
No.
He is. You should Google him because he's brilliant. Really brilliant.
Okay. More brilliant than Doug?
Somebody once told me they thought of my comedy like his, but they were drunk at the time.
Can I ask you a question? Did what you just said to me, did somebody really say that to you?
Yeah, many years ago.
It had to be so long ago.
Yeah.
It had to be before he started doing comedy.
It was probably he was a baby. I know. It was after I pissed on the floor. I couldn't control myself.
He is really strong. He's really, really strong.
But people would come up to me and say, "Oh, you remind me of this, that." I remember one act I paused a long time, and they said I reminded them of Jack Benny. Because I went, whatever. Anyway.
Well, Tommy Smothers paid me probably one of the 2 or 3 greatest compliments I've ever received. I told you I work slow with a lot of pauses, and you haven't really you'd have to really see my act to understand that. He came up to me. It was George's last HBO special. I was the opening act, and he was there for the dress rehearsal. So he came up to me after the show, and he said to me, "I love your air." And what he was saying was, he said, "I love your pauses. I love the time you take." Just to give you an example, and I'm not asking for your laughter, but when a woman can't make up her mind what she wants to eat, and she's going like this, everything looks so good. And you say you're out of the swordfish. Well, I had chicken for lunch. I don't want heavy. And on and on and on. And so that's what he was commenting on. And I called my brother and I said, guess what Tommy Smothers, my brother lives in North Carolina. Tommy Smothers, I mean, it was like I was floating.
I bet.
It was an amazing moment for me.
I bet.
Because I watched those guys and their timing. That comics don't work like that. They just, most of them.
Right. Now,
it's
heavy hitter that I got to work with that I love and I always have is Bob Nelson.
who?
Bob Nelson.
Tom, I'm going to tell you something. The first time I saw Bob Nelson on Rodney Dangerfield's, and he did the football player, and it was, let's say you had a list the 10 greatest bits, just bits of all time. Of course, his would be right up there. The problem is that was it. In other words, 40 years after he did that bit, everybody, when he goes on stage, all they care about is the football bit. And
it pigeonholed him.
Unbelievably so.
Yeah. If
If he could have come up with 10 of those or 20 of those, he'd be a superstar.
Yeah. He does have more other characters besides that, but that's obviously his most famous one.
And the funniest. I mean, it's brilliant.
Oh yeah.
I remember that special. Sam Kinison was on it. Oh, boy, it was those were the days. Did you like Rodney? Were you guys Rodney fans?
Loved Rodney. He's up there in my top 3, I think.
What about you, Doug?
I liked Rodney too, but I loved the others. I loved the Dryer, I think. I loved Burns and Allen because you had to work, you had to keep up with it. Same with May and Nichols. And I grew up with Abbott and Costello and Laurel and Hardy. I preferred Abbott and Costello.
Yeah, but those guys were, for me, were not as funny as they were pure entertaining. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We were kids.
Yeah.
Who didn't want to watch on Thanksgiving the March of the Wooden Soldiers?
Right.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
This was my comedy growing up, though. I couldn't stay up for late night.
Right.
That was it. I don't know what other comedians were around for me during the day.
Well, you guys, we talk about the Catskills. I was a member of the Friars Club for years. And so I've worked with the sort of second tier of great ones because the great ones had passed. But these are the guys I worked with. Freddie Roman, who created Catskills on Broadway, Dick Capri, Stewie Stone. I worked with Norm Crosby once. I worked with Professor Irwin Corey once.
Wow.
You talk about genius. Yeah. Stands there 5 minutes looking through his pockets. He finally turns around and he goes, however. I mean, genius. So and those guys, Shecky Green, I didn't work with him, but he was brilliant.
Yeah.
Alan King. Oh, classic.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to prefer the old Borscht Belt comedy, the set them up, knock them down jokes, one-liners.
See, I'm not. I appreciate it what Rodney could do, but he was to me it was like one note. You know what I mean? So I like, when the first time I saw Louis Black, he did 15 minutes at one of the Bringer shows I did, and this was 20 some odd years ago, whatever. In just 15 minutes, I thought I'll never see anybody better, but I did because I mean he sort of after he's a little bit stale now compared to but everybody gets stale except maybe Seinfeld. I don't know. Did you guys see Seinfeld's last show? On Netflix?
No,
I did not.
I did see him in Atlantic City not too long ago, just before COVID. And I have to admit, I was expecting a lot more out of him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. If he's listening,
they say good comedy, well, a lot of comics will say the best comedy comes from pain and suffering. And
Yes.
when you're making, $100 million a year or whatever, what's your pain and suffering?
That's a very interesting point, Doug. I mean, the reality of it
Where
is,
do you get it from? And how does he relate to an audience by saying, "Oh my God, the Ferrari, they gapped it to 0.22. It should have been gapped at 0.20. I'm getting a backfire."
that I don't know if that is a bit of yours, but you could do a whole thing on that. That's very funny.
Thank you.
But you really got to do your research on cars.
I
Excuse
know
me,
my
sir,
cars.
come here. You see this? This was supposed to be 2 inches to the left. See the hinge cracking? It's got to be 2 inches to the left. This is not the way I ordered it. I want it back. You know what I'm saying? If you do all your homework, it's a brilliant bit.
I don't need to do any homework. I'm already a pretty decent car mechanic. A DIY, and I'm OCD.
And you're what?
I'm OCD.
So
17 foot-pounds. What are you putting 15 foot-pounds on it? Give it a little more torque.
Okay. What was that an example of?
Tightening a bolt.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Was OCD in there also?
Yeah, because you got to tighten things evenly.
Yes. Okay, what do you got, Tom? What are your neuroses? What are your anxieties?
Well, I'm a nut job, basically. I have a severe separation anxiety, which is probably one of the big reasons why I never bothered getting married, because I knew I'd be divorced in 6 months and I wouldn't be able to handle it.
Wait, can I ask you something? Is that premise in your bit, in your act?
Not yet.
Well, it should be, because it's really a great premise.
It is.
The question is, when you say you have a separation anxiety, can you be more specific? What is that separation from what?
From anything. If I lose a job, if I have to change houses, change in any routine. Well, when I was 4 years old, my sister died at 5.
Oh,
that started it all.
Yeah. We all have stuff. We all have, baggage.
Right.
I grew up with a very, very, don't ask, I was a great athlete, but I grew up with a very poor self-image. I grew up thinking that in order to be valuable, in order to be special, you had to be the best looking people in the world. And if you weren't, you had to compensate. So it messed me up for so many years. The last thing I wanted to be was a regular guy. And now I'm thrilled, but it took me, 30 years of therapy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So anyway.
So Brad, do you do therapy? You seem very good at it.
I have been in with my first psychiatrist passed away much too young, and I'm with somebody else now, but really for bumps in the road. But during the COVID, my anxiety and depression, it kind of bumped itself up. I mean, the one thing, guys, that when you're working, all this time, for 6 straight years on your show, and then all of a sudden you get a year and a half off or maybe longer, you begin to question your identity and your purpose, especially as you get older. I'm 67. So the reality is you go, how do you make each day meaningful and stay optimistic and all that stuff? Enormous challenge. Enormous. So
to make it easier, I should let you know I have my master's degree in industrial psychology and offer unapproved psychological listening for only $14.95 an hour. Wait, there's more. I'm deaf in one ear, so I only hear like half of what people say. So I tend to seem to be very empathetic listener. I'm really nodding. What it is I didn't hear, but it seems like I understand.
Okay, now Tom, I'm going to show you how we work on a bit as comics working on a bit. So
Right.
he has a patient, and his patient is sitting in his office, and he goes like this. He turns to the side and he goes like this. Okay, go ahead. And the guy talks for 30 minutes, and he says, the patient says, so? What can you tell me? Can you give me any advice? He says, I have to be honest with you. I made a mistake. I
turned
should
my
have been
left
like
ear.
this. And that's what you do when comics, where I work all the time with other comics working on my material. The reality is I'm actually, for somebody who's had many issues, healthier than a lot of people who have never been in therapy. So I kind of, my therapist once said, I'm kind of self-examining. We were doing this sort of poignancy stuff, the way you said about separation, and you said that, well, you're just messed up. Anyway, so my thing was, I'm a self-examining guy, and I think as we get older, we should have moments where we question things. Am I content? What do I need to change to feel more content? What do I need? What haven't I done that I want to do? A lot of people, they just go through life like this, or they're driven by money. You know what I'm saying? Where that's the be all and end, especially in the world today. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Right.
No, I think there are many different ways to live. I remember when I was a kid, I read, was it Siddhartha by Hesse, about an aesthete? The religious culture that
well, one of the
they
most
lived on
famous
nothing.
books ever written. That was the book that we all read. We read Siddhartha Gautama the Buddha.
Yeah. And I remember there was a time I was thinking being an aesthete would be a great job. All you have to do is sit around. You put your hand, people give you food, right? They feed you because it's considered, it's considered not a mitzvah, but whatever in that language, to feed the poor, the starving.
Doug, you just gave yourself another brilliant premise. Imagine Doug sitting on the street. He's got his hands out, and somebody walks over and he says, "What is your name?" He says, "My name is Torte." And they said, "This is for you." And he said, "Oh, thank you so much." And then they start walking away, and he goes, "Excuse me, it could use a little salt." Doug, come on. That's a great premise.
Oh, I'm laughing. Thank you.
No, you're not. You're jealous.
I was laughing inside.
No, you weren't.
I once did a bit.
I love that as a premise. I once did a bit.
The bit began. It began by me thinking of sitting on the streets in New York with a sign that said "Laugh, $1." And then I thought, Doug, you're an old Jewish guy. I started late in comedy, later than you. This is not going to be a safe thing for you. What can you do to be safe if you go on with this idea? So I had some ideas and I wrote them on a pink piece of paper. And one of them was wear a mask, carry balloons, and then have my fly open. And I thought if I had balloons and wore a mask and had my fly, people would not bother me.
What I have to deal with.
I want to ask you a question. Did you want me to laugh just then, or was the goal, or just?
No, I was flashing back on the time that I took out the piece of pink paper where I wrote down balloon, mask, and fly open, and I was prepared for comedy night, and I took it out of my pocket, and I go, I have this note for comedy tonight, but I can't remember what I wrote these 3 things down about. And I read the 3 things: balloon, mask, and balloon. And I go, Doug, you've got a problem. I didn't know what it was for. And then I remembered it was to protect myself in New York. Anyway, yeah, I know. Listen, I'm just trying to get through the time. That's all I'm trying to do.
Good.
I'm talking, it's 20, 30 seconds. It's good. Somebody will give us 37 seconds. Before you know it, we'll be done with the show. Nobody will be, any wiser. Although they will be. I think this has been an elucidating, poignant episode of Funny Talk with Bongelli and Max. Don't you, Tom?
Absolutely.
Oh, come on.
So, Brad, tell me what your highest high point in comedy has been, or one of them anyway.
You know, Tom, it's really interesting. When I do my one-man show, and after the show, somebody comes up to me and says, because my show is not just funny, it's very, very poignant and moving and inspiring. And somebody says, I felt like it was just you and me in my living room. And, you know, it doesn't get any better than that. I did a show once in California, and a woman with a girl who has ADD, she was a junior in high school, and I saw her whispering to her mother during my show. And at the end of the show, when I sell books, souvenir books,
Yeah.
and she came over to me and she told me what she said to her mother. She said, Mom, I can't move. I'm so riveted to what he's saying. I just can't move. This is a girl, a junior in high school. And what had happened was, for whatever reason, you know, I don't take total credit for this, but something was penetrating and it was preventing her ADD from, you know, having her say, you know, get antsy. She was just boom. And you can't get any better than that. So those are my real, from the regular people, as opposed to, although it's always great to get a great comic tell you that they really like your work. That's really flattering. But it's also the regular people, guys.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. You know, what I find most valuable as a comic is just to being able to make people laugh and make a difference in their life. Because you can tell when somebody's life is not going well and they take an hour and a half out of their life to go see a comedy show, and they're literally laughing out loud, and then they come up to you afterwards and can't say enough nice things, and you know, I really needed this, I'm going through this, that, and the
That's
other
right.
thing. You know,
That's a great point. Yeah. By the way, Tom, I just want to thank you, because if not for you, nobody would have asked me any questions today. So thank you so much. I mean, Doug was
I do the
sitting there.
work. I do the setup work. I find the talent.
This is
I
what
find
Doug
the
was
talent.
doing during the whole show. He was going. So,
This is why people love me in comedy, because when I'm on a show, it's so much easier for the other comics to be good. You know, you set them up. I'm not going to be a dick of a host and be funny. I've seen hosts like that. Nobody wants to be on a show with somebody that's funny before them.
Hold on, wait. I can see Doug walking up to the lineup and going, listen, I want everybody to know I really suck. So it won't be hard to follow me.
They all know me. I don't need to tell them, Brad.
Oh, okay.
They know me well enough.
By the way, guys, I want to share this with you. Doug, you said something about lineups. I saw Lisa Lampanelli do a Friar's Roast when she was in her heyday, when she was heavy and just talking about black men and this, and nobody wanted to follow her. And there was a guy, he passed away, but he was dry as dry. But he was brilliant. His name was Max Alexander.
I know Max Alexander.
Okay. So Lisa comes up and goes, boom, boom, boom. And they're going crazy. And she gets off the stage, and Max is a Friar Roast of some famous person. And I don't remember the joke, but it doesn't have to. So he comes on and goes, hi. And he goes, you know, and he had a punchline that was brilliant. And he had, from that moment. So the great thing is, actually, you do want to follow a great comic.
You know, it doesn't matter anymore. It's you know, I used to hate it. People would always ask me to go on first, and I thought it was a compliment. You know, at first I thought it was you put the weakest on and build up. Then I realized later, no, that it's a compliment. But it turned out it didn't matter to me. I'm gonna have my interaction with the audience, and if somebody is horrible before me, the audience will be grateful. And if somebody is great before me, I'll ride the wave. So,
Doug, going first is incredibly hard.
Yeah.
And the hardest is emceeing, because the last thing they want to do when you go up on the stage right away is hear material. They're still ordering their drinks and settling in. So Susie Essman, who I used to open for, she told me when she and Rich Belzer were at the Catch a Rising Star when everybody was there, Larry David would go on, and if he didn't like the audience, he would walk off stage. And that's a true story.
I think I'm gonna start doing that. See if that.
So, no,
that
he would look at the audience and he goes, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. But wait, see, back then, guys, it was the MC. Susie told me this. The show was the MC's show. It was their show, and then they would introduce comics. Now the MC, for the most part, is just like getting them ready to see a show. Back then, it was, between Belzer and Susie's brilliant. I mean, she's so quick.
Yeah.
So,
and I had
let's
heard,
wrap this up.
I had heard that was the tradition in England. I think they have very strong MCs.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because they do. They pull the show together, whatever it is.
If you're a good MC, you are a great comic in my mind. If you can say to somebody, what do you do? And they say, well, I'm a lawyer, and then find a way to get humor out of that, you're a god.
Oh, yeah. It's a different skill set.
Yeah, pick a lawyer.
A lot of comics don't realize that.
Anyway, Brad Zimmerman, it's been really wonderful talking with you and hearing about your life. And when you have dates coming up for your one-man show, please let us know and we'll share on our Facebook page.
Thank you, guys.
For you.
It's been a pleasure. You're both great guys, and it was a pleasure. Almost an honor, almost.
Yeah, we get that a lot.
Okay,
So,
guys.
This has been Funny Talk with Mangelli and Max and Brad Zimmerman.
Thank
All
you,
right.
guys. Love
Thanks
you.
again.
See ya. Thank you.
Next time. Bye-bye.
Oh, when we should say, and don't forget, write to Jack at jirwinproductions.com if you would like a comedy show in or around the New Jersey, New York area. Right?
Amen. Yes.
Amen. Okay, Tom. Talk to you later, buddy.
Bye.